Here is a demo of AutoProvisioner, a tool that enables you as a developer to instantly deploy any backend services you have. So here we're in Claude. I'm going to start off by selecting a prompt. Here we have a deploy infrastructure project prompt. What we're going to do here is give it a repository URL so that it knows what content to actually deploy and read that content and figure out what sorts of infrastructure it actually needs. This repository is a simple Cloudflare worker. So let's go ahead and add the prompt and let Claude do its thing. So the first step is to initialize a fresh infrastructure project. I'm just going to allow that. So here we're going to be using the Cloudflare provider because this is a Cloudflare worker project. We're now going to check some examples so that we can collect the relevant context in order to write accurate Terraform configuration. So this example repository is another example of deploying a Cloudflare worker with Terraform. Right now it's going through and collecting the details of the files within that repository. Now it's going back and reading the contents of the repository that I've provided, the actual repository that we want to deploy. And now it's writing a plan on how we're going to do the deployment. Next step is we're going to enable Claude to write the project infrastructure and actually use the Terraform configuration that it's gathered the context of. Now it's going to go and write everything. So now we just wrote the provider Terraform file. Now we're going to go ahead and write the variables file. We can see that there's all the required Cloudflare variables that you need if you want to utilize Cloudflare with Terraform. And now it's going ahead and writing the main Terraform file. This is going to contain the actual Cloudflare worker script, a resource that defines the um, Cloudflare worker that we want to deploy. So there was an issue, as we can see in the response here. There was a problem with the syntax, so it's going ahead and fixing that. Here, there's another issue. We're fixing that. We can see that it provided name instead of script name, so it's fixing that right now. Now it's going to go ahead and create the domain Terraform file so that we have an actual domain that we can access the worker through. Going to go ahead and review all of the files that have been created. And now it's going to attempt to apply the infrastructure. This is going to actually attempt to deploy the infrastructure that we've written to Terraform. Sometimes the tool calls are a little bit ahead of the actual text that we see Claude giving us. So right now we see that there's a syntax error in the worker script that came back after we tried to apply the infrastructure. Right now it's going to fix that. Now it's going back and reapplying, and boom, we're all good to go. Now here we can see that we have a full domain that we can now access the worker that we've deployed at. So I can go ahead and copy that URL. I can go into Chrome here. We can access the URL. And here we go. Wow. Just like that, in one prompt, providing one GitHub URL, it successfully deployed the project to a public URL through Cloudflare and Terraform. We can see that we just have some HTML. That's what you were seeing being written into the main Terraform file. But we can also access a simple API endpoint, which has some JSON data. And there you have it, deploying an entire repository with just one prompt. Stay tuned.